In 1907, an archaeologist opened a tomb in the Valley of the Kings and found a coffin. The coffin was made for a queen. The body inside it was a man. The inscriptions on the coffin had been cut out deliberately, cleanly, by someone who knew exactly whose name they were removing. The mummy was DNA tested in 2010. It was Tutankhamun's father, Egypt's most powerful pharaoh, and no one knows who he was. That is not a fringe theory. That is the official finding of the Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities, sitting in the Cairo Museum right now. 7 things like this have been found in this valley. Each one has an official explanation. Each explanation has a wall it cannot get past. Stay until number 1. It is the discovery that was stopped mid-excavation and has not been touched since. Number 7. The Valley of the Kings, January 1907. Archaeologist Edward Ayrton breaks the sealed doorway of a previously unknown tomb. Inside, leaning against the wall at the wrong end of a corridor that floods every time it rains, is a coffin of extraordinary beauty, gilded, inlaid with carnelian and glass, clearly made for royalty. It is a queen's coffin. The face has been torn off. The name cartouches have been cut out of the gold, not scratched away in haste, but carefully excised, as though someone came back after the burial specifically to remove the identity. Inside, a mummy in royal wrappings. Male. The tomb had been opened and resealed at least once before Ayrton arrived. Other objects in the chamber pointed to Akhenaten, the pharaoh who abolished the gods, moved the capital to the desert, and was so thoroughly erased after his death that later dynasties listed him as the criminal of Akhenaten rather than ever write his name. The mummy was initially believed to be female, then male, then aged differently by different specialists across 60 years. In 2010, a DNA study commissioned by the Egyptian authorities gave the clearest answer yet: the man in the queen's coffin was the father of Tutankhamun. The analysis identified him as almost certainly Akhenaten. Almost. Because Egyptologists still cannot agree. Some read the same data and argue for a lesser pharaoh named Smenkhare, who may or may not have been a different person from Akhenaten, or may have been the same person under a different name. The cartouches were removed with such precision that no trace of them survives. We have the father of Egypt's most famous pharaoh, DNA confirmed. We do not know his name. And the last people who did know took a chisel to the answer before they sealed the door. Number 6. 1995, Egyptologist Kent Weeks is excavating a tomb that earlier maps from the 1820s labeled as small and uninteresting, just a few chambers. He follows a corridor. It branches. He follows both branches. They branch again. By the end of the first season, he has mapped 60 chambers. Then 90. The tomb now stands at over 130 confirmed chambers, still counting, making it the largest tomb ever discovered in the Valley of the Kings, or anywhere in Egypt. It is KV5, built for the sons of Ramesses II, the longest reigning pharaoh in Egyptian history. Ramesses ruled for 66 years and had over 100 children. KV5 was meant to hold his sons, perhaps dozens of them. The scale of it matches that intention. But the lower sections of the tomb cannot be entered. They are blocked by centuries of flood debris. The Valley of the Kings sits at the mouth of a wadi that channels rainfall into the cliff face every generation or so, and the lower chambers of KV5 are packed with compacted mud, limestone chips, and flood-deposited sediment that would take years and millions of dollars to safely clear. Weeks and his team have been working this tomb for 30 years. They have mapped what they can reach. What they cannot reach, by sonar and ground-penetrating radar, shows chambers that extend further and deeper than anything mapped so far. In those lower, sealed rooms, the sons of Egypt's greatest pharaoh, buried with objects that have not been disturbed since the New Kingdom. No one alive has seen them. No current permit covers their excavation. The mud holds. Number 5. 1881, a local man named Ahmed Abd El Rassel has been selling extraordinary antiquities to European dealers for 10 years. Shabby figurines, papyri, small amulets, all unmistakably royal. When the Egyptian Antiquities Service finally catches him and his brothers, they confess. They lead the authorities to a narrow shaft cut into the cliffs above the mortuary temple of Hatshepsut at Deir el-Bahari. Down the shaft, a long corridor. Inside the corridor, 40 mummies. Not ordinary mummies. These are the greatest pharaohs in Egyptian history. Ahmose I, the founder of the New Kingdom. Thutmose III, the Napoleon of Egypt. Seti I, whose mummy is the best preserved royal body ever found. Ramesses II himself, 90 years old when he died, still with his distinctive copper-red hair. All sealed in plain wooden coffins with dockets naming them, all moved here from their original tombs around 1000 BC by a priestly administration trying to protect the royal dead from the wave of tomb robberies sweeping the valley. The priests sealed the shaft. Left no record of where they had moved the bodies. The discovery was so overwhelming that when the mummies were loaded onto a river barge to be taken to Cairo, the Egyptian women along the banks of the Nile came out to grieve as the barge passed, wailing as for a funeral procession. But here is what the official account schemes passed. The cache contained mummies that the priest's own docket labels do not match. Objects listed in earlier Egyptological records cannot all be accounted for in the current Cairo inventory. The Abd el-Rasul family sold from this cache for a decade before discovery. What was in that shaft before 10 years of private sale reduced it to what the authorities finally saw? That number has never been established. Number 4. 2005, Egyptologist Otto Schadden is excavating a previously unrecorded shaft in the Valley of the Kings, 30 feet from the sealed doorway of Tutankhamun's tomb. Ground-penetrating radar had flagged an anomaly in the bedrock. What he finds in the sealed chamber below is a cache of 7 large painted wooden coffins in 28 large sealed storage jars. The coffins are in good condition. The jars still have their original ropan mud seals intact. One of the coffins, the largest, has never been opened. Schadden's team announces the discovery. It is the first new sealed chamber found in the valley since Tutankhamun in 1922. The excavation permit is suspended. The site is sealed. The stated reason is that KV-63 is classified as an embalming cache, not a burial. The jars are understood to contain natron, linen, and ritual waste from a nearby mummification. Schadden's team accepts this classification but notes they have not had the opportunity to verify the contents of the sealed jars. The largest coffin has not been opened. It has been photographed, X-rayed through its wooden exterior, and scanned. The official position is that the interior is consistent with an empty or near-empty coffin repurposed for storage. Independent Egyptologists who reviewed the same scans reached different conclusions. The site has been closed since 2006. The coffin lid is still in place. Number 3. The mummy of the pharaoh Siptah, now in the Cairo Museum. Look at his left foot. The bones are severely deformed, the limb shortened, the foot twisted inward and downward in a pattern that orthopedic surgeons who examined the mummy in 2012 described as consistent with acute poliomyelitis. Polio. A disease caused by a virus that spreads through contaminated water and waste, a disease of dense, unsanitary populations. Siptah ruled Egypt around 1200 BC, during the late New Kingdom, at the height of one of the most sophisticated urban civilizations in the ancient world. For most of the 20th century, mainstream medicine held that polio could not have existed in ancient Egypt because the population densities were too low and the hygiene standards too high. The mummy says otherwise. It says a reigning pharaoh walked on a leg destroyed by it. And here is the deeper problem. Siptah's parentage is officially unknown. His name was erased from several monuments after his death. His tomb, KV-47, was found stripped in a way that does not match the pattern of looters. What remained showed a systematic, careful official clearance, the same signature as politically motivated erasure. He reigned for 6 years, probably as a child placed on the throne by a regent. There are serious academic proposals that he was illegitimate. His tomb contents confirm he was given a full royal burial and then someone came back to unmake the record. The disease in his bones may have been real leverage. A pharaoh who could not walk was a pharaoh the priests could control, and a pharaoh who died young left behind no heirs to ask questions. Number 2. November 1922. Howard Carter breaks through the plastered wall of a sealed room and lowers a candle through the gap. Lord Carnarvon asks if he can see anything. Carter's answer, "Wonderful things," has been quoted 10,000 times. What is quoted less is what he found on the other side of the annex, a room smaller than a modern bedroom, piled to its ceiling in such deliberate disorder that Carter spent 3 years just cataloging the main chambers before he was allowed to touch it. When he finally entered the annex in 1927, he found it the most chaotic space in the entire tomb. Objects had been thrown in as though someone was in a hurry. Some items were upside down. Royal ritual objects were mixed with mundane household goods. Carter photographed everything, spent 5 years removing objects, and then ran out of funding. His final excavation notes, now archived at the Griffith Institute in Oxford, show clearly that the deepest corner of the annex was never fully cleared to the floor level. In 2015, British Egyptologist Nicholas Reeves published a paper proposing that a concealed doorway exists behind the north wall of Tutankhamun's burial chamber, potentially the sealed tomb of Nefertiti, Tutankhamun's stepmother, and possibly co-regent. Japanese radar scans commissioned in 2015 supported the anomaly. National Geographic scans in 2016 returned an ambiguous result. Egyptian authorities commissioned a third scan in 2018. The results were officially described as inconclusive. Access was halted. The radar data was never fully published. Inside that wall or not, something remains. The annex floor Carter never reached, the sealed corner of the richest tomb ever found in Egypt, under a vault that Egypt has kept closed for 100 years since the most famous archaeological discovery in history. Number 1. 2011. 2 previously unknown tombs are confirmed in the Valley of the Kings by ground-penetrating radar. They are labeled KV-64 and KV-65. KV-64 was partially excavated in 2012 and found to contain a later reused burial, a woman named Nehemsbastet, a singer of Ammonius from the 22nd dynasty, buried in an older New Kingdom shaft. The discovery was modest by Valley standards. KV-65 has not been excavated. It sits directly below the main tourist pathway through the valley, between the gift shop and the entrance to Tutankhamun's tomb, and preliminary imaging suggests it extends deeper than any shaft yet opened. The Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities confirmed its existence in 2011. No excavation permit has been issued. Here is the number that puts all 7 of this list in context. There are 63 known tomb complexes in the Valley of the Kings. Of those 63, fewer than 20 have been fully excavated to bedrock. Ground-penetrating radar surveys from 2000 to 2019 identified over a dozen additional anomalies beneath the valley floor that do not correspond to any known tomb. The valley is full. Not full of empty rock, full of responses from the bedrock that say something is there. The official explanation for many of the sealed sites is budget and logistics. Excavation is expensive, destructive, and the tombs that are fully cleared are harder to preserve for tourism. That explanation is true as far as it goes. What it does not account for is the selective nature of the stops. The annex Carter never finished. The KV-63 coffin no one opened. The KV-5 lower chambers behind the mud. The KV-55 cartouches cut out before the door was sealed. Each stop has an official reason. Each reason has a wall. The Valley of the Kings was the burial ground of the most powerful civilization on Earth for 500 years. What they built there, what they wrote there, and what they sealed inside the rock, 90% of it has never been disturbed since the priests locked the doors. We have been excavating the valley for 200 years. We are not close to done. 7 tombs. A coffin made for a queen that held a king with his name cut out. A tomb with 130 chambers and a sealed lower level no living person has entered. 40 pharaohs moved in the night by priests who left no record of why. A sealed coffin 30 feet from Tutankhamun that has never been opened. A boy pharaoh with a disease that should not exist, whose name was erased twice. An annex in the richest tomb in history with a corner no excavator has ever reached. And beneath the tourist path of the most visited site in Egypt, a tomb confirmed by radar in 2011, with no excavation permit issued since. The official record does not say these places are empty. It says they are sealed. There is a difference. If you want to follow what the sand keeps covering up, subscribe to Ancient Echoes. We publish one discovery like this every week. And tell me in the comments, of these 7, which sealed site do you think holds the most disruptive